Uh, Good morning and bonjour. Uh, I'm Pramesh, and I'll be talking about building effective teams by fostering psychological safety. Uh, Before I deep dive into my session, I'll start with who am I. I'm Pramesh Vaidya. I'm from Kathmandu, Nepal. As I said, have you had the chance to go to Nepal or visit Nepal? You know something about Nepal? Okay, fair enough. So Nepal is a small landlocked country between India and China. So as you said, it's a mountainous country. We have the highest mountain in the world. It's Mount Everest. Similarly, it's one of the religious place like Buddha, if you know the Buddhism and Buddha. He was born in Nepal. And coming back to myself, I started my career as a software developer. I worked a few years as an engineering manager and as a project manager for different kind of projects, from customer projects to certifications projects such as Common Criteria or Gartner project. Fortunately, I have had the chance to be a part of different trainings like CSM, CSPO, CAL, CSP, Safe Agilist, Agile Team Facilitation, ACC, Scrum at Scale Practitioner. But I think one of the major achievement that I see for myself is surviving the 25th April 2015 earthquake of 7.8 magnitude. Is there any, have you had the chance to experience any earthquake so far? So I think this is one of my biggest achievement because I still believe that there is much more for me to come. So I still feel that this is one of the achievement. And for last few days, I think even learning a bit of French, getting basic understanding of French is also an achievement from my end. So let's start with the session. So today we are talking about building effective teams, right? So before we deep dive into how to build a team, let's start with what is team. What comes to your mind when I say the word team?
Together.
Together? Any other? People? Okay.
Open-minded.
Open-minded? Okay. You're correct in some manner. Multiple definitions of team exist. There are multiple frameworks that talk about team. But on a fundamental level, if you look at it in a fundamental level, teams are very much interdependent with each other, right? And another thing that is people within the team need to work with each other. So they need each other to meet the goal, to get things done, to check the progress, right? So I'm just wondering, so if you see it in a basic level, team is nothing but a interconnected group of people who need each other to solve a problem or to reach a goal. I hope you don't disagree with my definition, right? So let's move on to the another section. Since we are building an effective team, so let's think of or try to visualize an effective team. When you hear the word effective team, what do you visualize? What could be some of the attributes that you have seen regarding the work that you have done with the effective team, and some of the attributes of an not so effective teams? So if you want to share any attributes of the effective team that you have worked with. Self-motivated. Okay. What else?
They self-regulate.
Self-regulate. Okay. Anything else?
They are solution-oriented.
Solution-oriented. Okay. Anything else for the effective teams?
They use people strength.
People strength. Now let's flip the coin. think about a team or envision a team which is not so effective. What do you see some of their attributes as?
Then I will not call that a team.
They are not?
I will not call that a team.
Okay, I'll not call that, you'll not even call that a team. Okay. So they are just a group of people, is that correct? Yeah. Any attributes that you can think of that is not attributes of an ineffective team? Anything else?
Not ready to collaborate.
Not ready to collaborate. Yeah. Okay. So what I have done is I've tried to research something on what are the attributes of an effective team versus some of the attributes of a non-effective team. And based on the research done by Google in the Project Aristotle, I guess you are familiar with the Project Aristotle done by Google. It says that it doesn't matter who is in the team, but it matters how the team works. So as you rightly said, if they are not collaborating, if they are not self-organized, they are not teams, they are just work groups. So that is the fundamental part or the attributes of an effective team. So it's not something that, okay, who is in the team, but it's about how the team work. But let's go deeper into the effective teams and their attributes. So this is where I'd like to see or present the research findings of the Project Aristotle done by Google. So according to Google, these are the 5 attributes of an effective team. And in the sequence of the importance, you'll first start with the psychological safety. That means you have an environment where you can put in your ideas, share your concerns openly without any fear. The second important attribute is dependability. You need to be, you can depend on your team to deliver the results up to your standard. Third one is structure and clarity. That is, everyone is clear in their roles and what's expected from them. Fourth one is meaning. They find some meaning to the work that they are doing. And finally, the impact. That is, they need to feel that team members that work create a change. So these are some of the attributes that Google identified when they looked for the effective teams. So how did they find this one? So I'll just talk briefly about the research that Google did. Google did a qualitative and quantitative analysis. They started with the quantitative analysis, but later on identified that even maybe quantitative analytics alone would not be able to address all of the required parameters to come up with these results. So what they did was they did a qualitative and quantitative study with managers, with senior executives, with team leaders, with team members, and they have come up with this list. Right, so if you see, psychological safety stands at the top of the attribute. So let's move on to some of the variables that Google did not find significant as an attribute of an effective team. So they are co-location of team members, consensus-driven decision-making, extroversion of team members, individual performance of team members, workload size, seniority, team size, and tenure. But I just want to emphasize here something. This is just the finding based on the work that is done by Google. It doesn't mean that this is the population. It's just a sample of what Google did, and that is applicable for their organization. Because we have seen a lot of study where we have identified that team size actually matters. Smaller team size, less than 10 people, actually seem to have high effectiveness compared to a team which has a very big number. So I'd just like to request you to take this in that note. This is the finding shared by Google, but it's not necessary that this is a representation of all the teams throughout the world. But this is a finding in any case. So we have seen what Google have done in the, regarding the research to identify the attributes of an effective team. Now let's move on to some of the other organizations who have tried to or work with the effective teams. One of the organizations that is really popular within the Agile world is the Spotify. I'm pretty sure every one of you have heard of the organization Spotify, right? Any of you working have had the chance to work with Spotify or no? Okay. But I'm pretty sure you might have seen the Spotify Agile engineering video multiple number of times, right? So it's one of the most popular videos that go around in the Agile world. So if you see the Spotify model, what it says is a much has been talked about, written about the Agile engineering culture within the Spotify, right? They talk about autonomy, alignment. I just wanted to go deep and then see how they measure the effectiveness of their teams. Though there were not many, let's say, work done by Spotify, but how they did was like they used a tool called Squad Health Checkup regularly to see the effectiveness of their team. So in regular frequency that the team decides, they did a regular squad health checkup, and squad in case of Spotify is a team. So some of the attributes that they used to check the health of the team were like support, teamwork, are the team members or pawns or players, what's the mission, health of code base, suitable process, delivering value, learning speed, easy to release, and fun. So they measured different squad along these parameters. It's not to identify which team is doing good or which team is doing bad. It's a tool to identify where they are and where they can improve on, right? So red suggests that, okay, this is the area that they need to work on, and yellow is like they are doing average, but they want to go forward, and then green is like they are good. But if you see, in order of precedence, some of the top 3 parameters when they do a squad health check is the support, right? Support among team members. It's the teamwork, as we also talked about, and then whether team is autonomous to take decision. Are they just the pawns of the chess, or they are the actual players, right? So I'll just move on. So we have taken a reference of 2 organizations. One is Google, one is Spotify. I just wanted to check if this philosophy would also hold true for other organizations. That's not exactly a part of the technology industry. So as a kid, I was really fascinated by the US Army and then the Secret Service. I'm not sure how much are you fascinated by it, but US Army and Secret Service was one of the best thing for me to read about or see the videos of. So the more I explored, the more I got engrossed in it. And then one of the, I was so fascinated by a particular team in the US Army, that's, or the tactical force of the US Army called Navy SEALs. I'm pretty sure you guys have heard about the Navy SEALs team. It was Navy SEALs is like sea, air, and land, but they have different names. I think they had their code names with different names at different times. But on a fundamental level, these are some of the most tactical teams who are given with such a high mission that they can't fail. They'd work with such a mission-critical projects. And then I just wanted to see what would be their mindset. What would be the attributes of the team that work with such a mission-critical systems? So, though, as I said, there isn't much literature about Navy SEALs, I just, based on the research I could do and read about it, some of the attributes that I can see of the Navy SEALs are competent team members with a special skill. As they say, it's difficult to get into a Navy SEAL team than to get into a Harvard University. But the second one is interesting, that is trust and then collaborative environment. Third one is a high standard for excellence. You can guess that. High level of external support from the management, and the principled leadership. That is team leaders serving as coaches, even the situational leadership. So so we have seen three different teams, like, or three different organizations whom we have tried to break down and see their attributes. Have you seen a pattern where all of these three teams have worked with, or a common attribute among these three teams that has helped them to excel? Okay, anything? Though not directly, but if you think psychological safety, teamwork, team building, and then trust and collaboration. At least you can see this common pattern in all the teams that have been successful in different organizations, right? What I'm not saying is psychological safety is the most important thing, but I'm not denying from the fact that it is one of the important thing, correct? So let's deep dive into what psychological safety is, right? Actually, psychological safety was the term coined by a Harvard business professor, Amy Edmondson. She coins the term as a climate where people feel safe enough to take interpersonal risks by speaking up and sharing concerns, questions, or ideas. So what does it mean in reality? What does it mean in your case? I'll just ask a quick question. Have you ever been a part of a meeting where people are really silent, not speaking anything? Yes? Yes? One way or the other, have you been a part of that? Why do you think it is the case?
Because they were not safe.
They were not safe. Uh,
They don't want to take risks.
they don't want to take risks. Yeah. So on a fundamental level, if you see the human patterns and how we think, we are by inherent nature, we are not someone who would take risks, or someone who would be happy to remain silent rather than to speak about it. So that's our inherent nature. So that is why leaders need to work to foster the psychological safety there. You might also have heard about multiple teams where fear may have worked. Have you, during your young age, worked with a team and on your own understanding as well? Sometimes you feel that, okay, if the team is actually scared of me, they'll do good. But if I'm like really friendly, they'll slack and they'll not work as they would work when they fear, right? So one time or the other we have seen that. But by nature, what it suggests is team might be able to do some level of work with fear for a short period of time. But when you extend that period for a significant period of time, fear doesn't work. The reason being, fear hinders learning and fear hinders the collaboration. All right? So maybe ages back when people were working as an assembly line worker, they were doing a job that is repetitive in nature. Even the fear might have worked, because it's not a complex work. It's a simple work, and there is a sequence of things that they can do to achieve the output, right? But in this case, right now, as the Kenefin model also talks about the complex work, right? So in the complex world, you need to constantly learn and collaborate. So that is why fear doesn't work in case of software development, right? So I'll once again move to why psychological safety. So psychological safety drives higher engagement, it drives collaboration, it drives participation. It also increases the creativity, conflict resolution, and overall well-being. I'd like to share a small statistics there. The team or the team members who feel psychologically safe seems to be 75% more engaged in their work. And I'm not saying that this is a data that I have got from research. They seem to be 50% more productive than the team that is not feeling safe. And they are 50% more likely to stay within the organization if they feel psychologically safe. So, but there is a lot of misconceptions about what psychological safety is and what psychological safety is not. And let's deep dive into what psychological safety is not. When we say about or think about psychological safety, it's not about being nice. It's not like saying yes to everything, not giving feedbacks. It's about the productive disagreements and free exchange of ideas. It's not saying yes to everything. You need to think you still have a room for disagreements, but in an open and safe and collaborative environment. Right? Another one is it is not a personality factor. A lot of initial research suggested that people don't speak up because that might be their personality. Some think that, okay, he is an introvert person and he is an extrovert person. So a team full of extrovert person might be speaking, but a team that is like, let's say, have a lot of people who are introvert might not be talking. But research shows that it's not the case. Even the introvert team members actually speak up about the ideas and the problems if they feel psychologically safe. So it's not actually related to the personality traits. It's more about the environment that you create. Right. So, and it's just not another word for trust. Sometimes trust and psychological safety is being used synonymously, but it is not the case. Can you think of why it might not be the case? Why trust and psychological safety is not the same thing? Uh-huh. Sure. That's one way. Anything else? Just give it a thought. Why? Okay, trust and psychological safety. Trust equals to psychological safety, but it is not actually the case. Is it? Just imagine a team. Just imagine being in a team. Can there be a case where you trust one member of the team but not another member of the team? Can that be the case? Right? But psychological safety is an environment within the team. So it's not on an individual basis. So it's a team, right? It's more complex, exactly. Like, for example, it could be like psychological safety is I'm giving you, we are having a session. Like, for example, if you are scared to ask me any questions or scared to share your ideas or talk about things, then it is not a psychologically safe environment. You are getting it, right? So, but let's say you can ask the question and I give you a response, but you don't trust that response. Then that is trust. Like, for example, in psychological, if the environment is not safe, you are not even starting up with a question. Just think about it. But in case of trust, you can actually ask a question. There's an environment where you can ask a question and I can respond, but you may not trust the response or trust my response. Right? So that is where the difference between trust and psychological safety comes in. Trust is more on an individual basis. Psychological safety is more of a team. And it's not about lowering performance standards. It's not something that if you are psychologically safe, you are comfortable in your workplace. You can do very less and get away. You can set some meager goals and get away. Actually, psychological safety, as we talked about, fosters collaboration and learning and engagement. So what does it mean is you can set more challenging goals. And actually, you have a higher chance to achieve them compared to when you are not psychologically safe. Just think about it. Just think about these points in terms of what psychological safety is not. Let's go into a reference case of a Nokia. Probably at one time or the other, every one of us might have used the Nokia cell phones, right? Do you guys still use it? No? Why not? Sorry? Too small. But rather, I'd be more concerned about not just a particular phone, but more of a cell phone from a Nokia brand. Do you guys actually use it? No? Which phone do you guys use? BlackBerry. Gentlemen, you? Samsung? Why not Nokia? Yeah, before yes, but not now. Why? Sorry? Yeah. Yeah. But I think the more deeper area that I want to go for is because Nokia was at one time a leading company, right, for producing the mobile phones. Are they the leading company now? No? No? Everybody agrees with me? Sorry? Okay, yeah, smartphone switch. I'm really not good with things, so I have another dumb question. So it is, why do you think they were not good with the smartphones? You mentioned that they don't produce smartphones, right? But why do you think they were so poor in terms of producing the smartphones? They were one of the best-selling mobile phone companies at one point. They might have had the fund, they might have all the resource, all the energy, and then all of a sudden Apple came in with the hardware and software background, and then all of a sudden took over the mobile market. What do you think is the main reason?
They were not ready to adapt.
They were not ready to adapt. Let's phrase it slightly differently. Is it fair that they also didn't adapt to innovate? Would I be wrong if I say that they also didn't evolve or innovate as per need? Right? And it's an interesting story as to why they didn't innovate. The only reason being, there were a lot of discussions going on between the senior managers, and the executives. Executives believed that it's time for them to cash in the sales that they were having. But senior managers and managers somehow felt that they need to innovate. They need to go into new technologies. They knew about it, but they didn't act on it. The reason being, once again, the managers were not feeling safe to share their ideas, or at least strongly present their ideas to the senior management or C-level to ensure that they set in some budget to work on the innovation or the next-gen mobile phones. A simple mistake, but that cost Nokia a big deal. And now even maybe they're merged with Microsoft and they're producing few phones, but do you see the same level of stature that they once hold in the market? No, right? So this is just a merry example of what psychological safety can do within the organization. They can break or make the organization. If you want, you can look into another case studies as well from the Wells Fargo Bank of US, Volkswagen for that matter. and then Pixar Studios, how it uses or fosters the psychological safety to achieve higher goals. Okay, great. So I think since you guys joined slightly late, so we are talking about psychological safety. So I think we all agree that psychological safety is an important part of, or an important attribute of being an effective team, right? So, or anybody doubts it? No, right? So as a Scrum Master or as an Agile coach or as a leader or as a team member, how do you foster the psychological safety? Because we acknowledge that there should be an attribute that we need to take care of. It's an attribute that we need to work with or we need to develop in a team. But knowing and doing is something different, right? So as a Scrum Master, or as an Agile coach, or as a leader, or as a team member, how do you think we can foster psychological safety? Maybe you can take a few minutes to think on your own.
Encourage people to have initiatives.
Sorry?
Encourage people to
Encourage people to take initiatives. Okay. Any others? Sorry? Yeah, acknowledge when things are good. For me, I checked in terms of how I can do that with my team. So, of the many coaching techniques, I found Grow coaching model to be a simple framework, coaching framework that I can use. There are many coaching frameworks, as you may be aware, but I just picked up Grow coaching model for the simplicity of use. And that is what I'm going to share today. So, I used Grow coaching model to foster psychological safety. It could be used with any issues. I could have picked up any framework, be it the Tuckman's team model or any other model, but I just felt that with the simplicity of the Grow model, I went forward with it. So I'm pretty sure you guys might have heard about the Grow model. Any of you guys haven't heard about the Grow model? You haven't heard about the Grow model. Okay, great. Have you had the chance to know? Okay, no worries. That is what I am for. So, what is Grow model? Grow model is about goal, reality, options, and will. So it's a coaching model. So you start with setting a goal. That is, what do you want? Right? Or what more do you want? Be it any issue that you want to solve, be it the psychological safety issue, be it the conflict issue, or be it how you want to organize your life, or how you want to raise your children. It could be any issue. You start with, what do you want to do? What's your goal? Right? Then the second step is a reality, where you are. Exactly what is happening now. And that is applicable for any issue. Third, what are the options you have? What could you do? Or what else could be that can be done? And finally, will. What will you do? Or precisely, what are your action items that you'll take forward? So, grow is like goal, that is what you want to do. Reality is where you are currently. Options are like, what are the things that you can do to reach your goal? And ultimately, will is something that you'll take it forward. It could be a big thing, it could be a small thing. Right? So, but I just want to caution few things with the Grow coaching model. Grow, by framework, is not a coaching in itself. It's just a framework. Like, for example, if Scrum is just a framework of an Agile, it depends upon how you use the framework and the applicability, right? So similar is the case with the Grow model. Grow is not a coaching in itself. It's just a framework. Even the dictators can use grow coaching model. So how do you use it in an effective way? You need to bundle it with the effective coaching techniques. You need to put in your coaching techniques or empathy of coach or your coaching skills to take a benefit of the grow coaching model. So also, I've seen a lot of coaches. I'm not sure if you guys have had the chance to meet some agile coaches who have provided solutions to the problems by themselves. Have you seen them? Or have you encountered any of the agile coaches who have actually provided a solution? These are the things that you need to do. This is what Scrum prescribes. This is what Kanban prescribes. Coaching is not about teaching a particular thing. Once again, it could be debatable. Agile coaching is somewhere in between teaching, mentoring, and consulting or coaching. But there have been instances where Agile coaches have actually given or prescribed things. But coaching in general is about raising awareness, helping the team member to, or helping an individual to learn rather than teach. Make them aware of the problem. Make them aware of their situation. Make them aware of what they can do and how they can benefit. It's not about telling them. It's making them realize with some powerful questions, some active listening. Just think it on your own. And another one that's really helpful is Grow coaching model is super effective and super simple that even you can use this model to coach yourself. So usually coaching happens with a coach and a coachee, right? But the model is so effective that you can actually use this framework to coach yourself. So some of the questions that might help you to frame your goal or reality, options and will could be, in case of goal, what would you like to work on? What is, in a particular issue, what is something that you want to achieve? And what is your goal related to the issue? Let's say you want to change the behavior of your team. They are not cooperative. What would you like to work on? What is your goal when you say it's creative? Just list down what could be the benefits if the team would be creative, and what will it be like if you achieve your goal. Just envision the success, the place where you see if the goal was being achieved. Just help the individual frame this out. And these are just representative questions. It's not a comprehensive list. It depends upon the coach to come up with these questions. These are just representative questions. Now, think of a reality. Some of the questions that can help you to come up with a reality is, what action have you taken so far? What is moving you forward towards your goal? What is getting in the way? Right? And some of the questions to identify the options could be, what different kind of options do you have to achieve your goal? What else could you do apart from something that you are doing or apart from your current reality? What are the principal advantages and disadvantages of each option that you have identified to achieve your goal? Right? So, and finally, which options will you choose? Are you going to start each action, or you will start with one action? How committed are you on performing that action? On the scale of 1 to 10, is it like the 1, or you're super committed to work on that action? And if not, you are super committed, what would it take to make that action item super committed? So this is just a simple framework that will facilitate you to think differently. And it could be, I've also seen cases where individuals have realized that, okay, they start with an issue, they set an action item, but just say that, okay, maybe after thinking through this process, they realize that the issue that they were thinking of in such a big manner is not the one that they need to think about. So what happens is they can just say that, okay, I have set an action item that I'll not take it right now, but maybe set a date when I'll follow up. Right? So this is a simple explanation of what grow model is. Are you guys following me, or yeah? Okay, sure. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Let's have as interactive sessions as possible, as we have a small crowd. So I have created my own grow psychological safety canvas. So since we are talking about psychological safety in this particular session, so I have created a grow canvas along those lines. So if you are a coach who is trying to foster a psychological safety within your team, what could be some of the questions that might help you to think through in terms of psychological safety? Just think of what psychological, so if you are starting with a goal, just think about what does psychological safety mean for the team? When you say psychological safety, what does it mean? Because everyone is running after this buzzword, like at one time, like autonomy, self-organizing teams, highly aligned team, psychological safety, dependability, meaning. But just think through in terms of what psychological safety mean for the team. Just take a moment and think about it. Second one is why psychological safety matters. What are you going to get out of it if the team feels psychologically safe? Right? Because you don't want to just create a psychological safety because you have heard good things about it. You want to get something out of it. So what are those things? Isn't it? And the third one is, what will it enable you to do? What will it enable you to do? So think along those lines. And actually, we'll have a small workshop along these lines after a few minutes. Now you have identified what's the goal or some of the questions that can help you to identify your goal. Now let's move on to the reality. How do you identify the current state of psychological safety of your team currently? And this is where I have borrowed a survey questionnaire from Amy Edmondson, who has written the book about psychological safety, and she has shared some of the questionnaire to get an understanding of how psychologically safe the team feels. For example, some of the questionnaire that could be used, like, if you make a mistake on this team, it is often held against you. Maybe you can use a Likert scale to map the number in terms of 1 to 5. Second is, members of this team are able to bring up problems and tough issues. Is it likely? Is it very less likely? No, it's a neutral thing. It's very, very less likely. It's completely likely. So for each of the questions, you can use a rating from 1 to 5 to get an understanding of where you stand or where your team stands in terms of psychological safety. And it's not something that the team's manager would do that, or the coach would do that, or a scrum master would do that. It's the teams who do that. Right? So another few questions are, people on this team sometimes reject others for being different. It is safe to take a risk on this team. It is difficult to ask other members of this team for help. No one on this team would deliberately act in a way that undermines my effort. Working with members of this team, my unique skills and talents are valued and utilized. So these are some of the questions or the questionnaires that can be used to see where you stand or where your team stands in terms of the psychological safety, right? What could be the options, as we discussed? What could be the options that can help you to, to facilitate or create that environment of psychological safety? Like, for example, maybe demonstrate engagement, you involve in an active listening, you provide feedbacks, you ask questions. That will make them feel psychologically safe, isn't it? What else? Source understanding. Get an understanding of what another person is trying to say. Repeat it so that you guys, both of the guys are, you guys are in the same page. Be inclusive in interpersonal setting. So try to talk with him in terms of what are the challenges that they are facing. Make them inclusive in decision making. Talk to them. What, what could be the decision that could be made? And if you are making a decision, let them explain why you have made that decision. Maybe show confidence and conviction without appearing inflexible. You can show that you have the confidence to make decision, but without being like appearing inflexible. And finally, will. That is, which options would you want to take forward? And once again, are you going to start each action? What's your priority of starting a question? Sorry, the option. And how committed are you for a particular action? And if not, what it takes to be committed for a particular action. So this is a psychological safety canvas using a GROW model. So if you want, we can do a small workshop in terms of just among you, or just take some time to use this canvas to identify what could be some of the goals for you, some of the where the reality is in terms of your team, and then what you see as some of the options. And once again, these are just some of the things that I have identified. It's not necessary that these are all of it. Just take few minutes of your time. Just think about what does psychological safety mean for the team. What do you want to achieve out of the psychological safety? If you have the psychological safety, what will it enable you to do? Just think about it. So you have had the chance to list down your goals. Sorry, we are talking about the grow coaching model okay, sure. So what we are trying to do is, what does uh, what does you mean when you want to have a psychological safety? What's your goal with the psychological safety? Why do you want to have a psychological safety? So I'm just requesting every one of you guys to just think on your own. If you guys are done, any of you would like to share, or also, if you are done with the first section of the group, maybe you can pick up with the second section in terms of reality. Try to map the reality into the Likert scale. So for every question, let's say, if you want to get an understanding of where your team stands in terms of psychological safety, use survey questions like, if you make a mistake on this team, it is often held against you. Is it most likely? Is it likely scenario? It is neutral? It is less likely, or it is very less likely? Yeah. Just try to map for each question in a 5-point Likert scale. Similarly, see members of this team are able to bring up problems and tough issues. Is it the scenario? Is it most likely? Is it likely? I don't know. Maybe it's very less likely. People are not able to bring up issues. They are criticized heavily when they bring up problems or tough issues, or they are very criticized. So just try to map it. And this is just a sample. You can use ratings, you can use radar charts, you can use any of the ranking mechanism to achieve this. Sure.
All of this survey questionnaire there's more questions, or is like a short list of it?
It's a list of questions. Yeah, it's a list of questions that Amy Edmondson, who termed the coin psychological safety, came up to get an understanding. But these are just some of the sample or the sample mean questionnaires. But you can extend that definitely. Yeah. How are things in here? Is it making sense or? Okay. So just try to rate and rank where your team stands in all the questions. And you can take your time to think on this. It's not like a pretty quick exercise. You need to think deep and hard. Just think about what psychological safety means. Think about whether what does it mean to, or what does it enable you or your team to get out of it? And try to map the reality, identify the current reality. Then maybe think of some of the options. And these are some of just the representative options that I have got from the research done by Google. It's not a superset of all the options. These are just some of the suggestions that were being made by Google. It's not necessary that they are applicable to, in your case. It could be completely make sense that it could be applicable to your case, but just think in your situation, what could be the options? And finally, a small action item that you want to take it forward when you get out of the workshop, that you want to work with the team. We will take few additional moments, maybe around 10 minutes, to work on this one. And if you have any queries, questions, please feel free to ask. And then maybe we can do a quick sharing session among ourselves in terms of or your situation, and maybe other guys can help you with the questions, powerful questions, to get a better understanding of things. Sorry? Yes, absolutely, 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 absolutely.
It's better than taking questions.
Sure, 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 absolutely, absolutely. No, 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 that's fine. No, 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 that's fine. I've put the name of all the references for my presentation at the end. I'll share that. No worries. But the name is the Fearless Organization. How are things in here? Going good? Okay. Sure. So are we done here or? Almost done? Mm-hmm. Okay. Are we all done? So shall we share among ourselves? Sure. So maybe, whom shall we start with? Maybe you can. Yeah, sure. Maybe. Yeah. Maybe you can come in here. So. Oh yeah, that's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea. So, whom should we start with?
I can start.
Yeah, great.
Okay, so I feel this in the context of a team and software development. Actually, my goals I wrote down is to have more honest feedback. So if you have the psychological safety, I expect. Do you have to speak up really?
You're.
I don't know if they are recording.
They are recording.
But yeah, I actually I don't want to share it on a recording. So I hope for more honest feedback, also for faster learning and knowledge sharing, and faster delivery of the development. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So speeding up. Also to have more freedom of sharing ideas, so to hear what is coming up in the team.
Mm-hmm.
That's what about the goals. So do we go through all of them?
Yeah, maybe we can go through all of it, right? And then maybe take turns.
Okay. So for the reality, I feel like these questions, and actually I don't see. So it was rather what I would say good. So issues raising is not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
A big difference is good. So I do not see much improvement on this part, but I'm not saying that the team is perfect or.
Sure.
Probably it's just that I did not find the right trigger question.
Okay, sure. These are just some of the representative questions. So you can have your own questions. You can identify more areas that you want to include.
Yeah, maybe the one where we could work on is asking for help.
Oh, yeah.
But it's different for each team member, so that's something I want to ask. Would you feel this for each team member or for the team?
No. So I've seen this questionnaire being used in multiple scenarios or multiple contexts. So what they do is, as a group, they do a planning poker kind of thing. So these are the set of questions. So to get the bias out, so as a group, we do a small planning poker. So you say that, okay, everybody shows their card in terms of, okay, less likely, most likely, and then as in the case of planning poker, you discussed if there are two options, then you discuss among the teams. And then second time also you do a planning poker. And the team decides and come up with this one. So I have seen that as as one way that the teams come up with where the current situation is for themselves in terms of this. I've also seen in some organization where leaders take the initiative for identifying this. So, and also I have seen organizations where each of the team member fills up this questionnaires on their own, and then the agile coach or the scrum masters just work with them in the workshop to talk about what they mean and get a qualitative analysis rather than a quantitative analysis. So there are various ways that the questionnaires have been used.
Okay. The options I noted down for me is to talk with people, to talk about different things, being inclusive in decisions. So if it's like hiring or changing processes, just asking everybody or including people,
Mm-hmm.
also giving responsibilities to the members. So that's the options I wrote down for the wheel. So what I would do, or what we're actually doing. We're doing regular talks.
Mm-hmm.
Also for hiring, it's including the team members in the decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe also some team events can raise this to get to know each other better.
Yeah. So you identified some of the team events, one thing, in making the team members inclusive as another option. Did I miss any other option?
Yeah, regular talks.
Regular talks, yeah, of course. So among these three options, if you have to prioritize on the top of your action item will list, what would that be?
The talks.
Talks? Okay.
Would be
Highest?
highest.
How committed are you on it to have regular talks?
Actually, I do it. I have it scheduled.
Okay, great, great, great.
And then probably the team events, since it's fun,
Yeah.
and finally the sessions.
Ah, great, great, great. So it's more like, so you start with the talks and then have some team events that will help you along the lines, and then finally you have you make the team inclusive in the decision making as well. Yeah, thank you so much. Maybe you can share something about what's your interpretation or how you worked with the group coaching model for psychological safety.
I can work on many levels. I'm working as a consultant, but sometimes I have to manage teams
Yeah, great.
for clients or for my consultancy firm,
Mm-hmm.
and to set up a real deep transformation of a team that is puzzled or not with good results, or there are a lot of people quitting the companies, etc. That means that there's triggers and there's stuff behind that. And usually in this high tense consultancy environments, usually we need to have to set up like the basics, and grow is like setting up the basics in
Okay.
a way. Is we are coming back to what matters. And for the goal, for example, is like people we are in the human relationship,
Mm-hmm.
and trust is so the basics. If you can't talk with your junior about are you do you rely on me? Do you rely on your other colleagues for your difficulties? Because the clients are very tough with us,
Mm-hmm.
and we have a lot of pressure. Are you self-confident?
Mm-hmm.
All the self-confidence is everybody's behaving like is the top of the top.
Mm-hmm.
In the reality, is not at all this. So the goal is to declare the correct level of confidence they have of
Mm-hmm.
themselves and their relationship in the team and with the client. Within the organization, is it possible for them to share the difficulties with
Mm-hmm.
me as a manager
Mm-hmm.
or with the client?
Mm-hmm.
If, and building stronger ties of
Mm-hmm.
the team
Mm-hmm.
to have the declaration of the difficulties they can have face with the clients or with the consultancy firm.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the final goal it's trust, upscaling people,
Mm-hmm.
feeling better, and
Mm-hmm.
wanting to have more and to be in a very good loop of self-confidence.
Oh, great, 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 great. So, as you said, I follow all your goals. But if you have to think of one business goal that it would relate to, let's say, if there is a executive who is looking into your set of goals, and then he comes up with like, okay, that's all well and good. Okay, you have a trust, you build a good organization, you build a confidence in the team members. People are do not fear about coming up with problems. But what's the business goal for me? What's there for me as an executive?
There's people don't quit the team
Okay.
day by day. They never declare that they want to quit, and bam, you have like a letter of dismissal on
Uh-huh.
the HR desk,
Uh-huh.
and that's very bad because you are in the middle of a very tense project, for instance, and
Yeah.
everybody's like, why he didn't say a word about this? And
Okay.
after you just pull the real facing the reality,
Yeah.
and it is like, yeah, I was personal difficulties. I was not. There was this colleague who just like bullied me a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
The client was too tough for me, and but I didn't want to deceive you, so I didn't declare his
Uh-huh.
difficulties, etc. So it's so complex.
Yeah.
And this, in consultancy firm, it's like. Human relationship is the base,
Mm-hmm.
and we can't develop our business without strong
Mm-hmm.
teams.
Great.
Strong and well behaved, well people feeling well
Mm-hmm.
together.
Mm-hmm.
Because after it's like just a short-term business.
Mm-hmm.
They lived after 2 years of junior, and after they leave from as a consultancy firm. And even for them, it's not a good path to think about their career.
Okay.
But yeah, it's like upscaling people.
Upscaling people, yeah.
Are giving a better business model, is answering better to the business model, like future manager, future senior, future clients very happy and trusting even the company more, because we are not only like pushing people on the client's office. We are really
Actually
yeah.
trying to add a value to,
Yeah.
or yeah, yeah. So what do you see of the team that you are working with in terms of the current reality, where they are in terms of the psychological safety?
It's very. I like very much this survey because we are facing so much asshole environment. Sorry,
Yeah.
stronger words. But what in my experience was real is like, are you able to bring up problems and tough issues? It's like before the shit hit the fan.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's so important because sometimes it's coming from the operational level that the tough issue are coming from. If they are not able to say to you, you are in, you can't face and fix problem with them. So it's major, and so the reality is like it's very different. It's very important and it's very linked to the character of the people. Sometimes they are more shy. Sometimes they are more the contrary, very. Yeah, but they are hiding the reality, both of them. So how to balance that and how to make them ask me what is the real reality with their own position. The risk avoidance in French society, it's so it's very very big because we don't take risk because there's so much money on the stakes. There's so much business, blah blah blah. But you know what I mean? And it's the contrary. People are not taking risk to bring more in the future. And just to speak up about the real issue and what we should take on like risk, but sometimes tiny, to bring more. And what is very likely or very very likely is like yeah, it's like tiny, but it's so important to know if there's like tiny competition and little assholeness level in some teams. When you have a lot of pressure, consultancy or firm is like very tough sometimes, and you have guys who are just like undermining the efforts, and this is killing. For me, it's very very important because it's killing the real good consultants who want to who is not speak up a lot, and there's people who are very very negative, and they are speak up because they have better relationship with other managers, and they are undermining communication about the result of the others, and nobody will speak up. So it's for me very difficult to face this kind of reality. Who can say my colleague or other colleagues are killing my giving bad communication about what I'm doing? This is very very painful as a manager. And how to value skills is so important in consultancy firm. Working with members and as a manager, as you, if you are different, you are not an analytical guy, but you are very inventive. Sometimes you are not. I will not push you as a project manager or product owner, but I will be more you on the Scrum Master because you are more fixing problems with the teams, etc., and you have more solutions to provide. So, but it's like, no, you're not bad, but you are very good at this, and I value your qualities.
Okay.
To have this kind of thing recognized, yeah, it's very important on the map. So it's very good questions, I think.
Yeah.
And the last point I will make is that the HR models of the evaluation of a good consultant, for example,
Mm-hmm.
It's like annual evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
This is bullshit for me because our objectives are moving every month.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
kind of map,
Yeah.
done as a resources which every month could give a really better map of the future performance
Hmm.
through the psychological
Mm.
safety
Mm. Okay.
because it's positive win-win.
Yeah. Yeah. Any options you identified in terms of what could be the things that you can change, or what could be the options that's applicable to be changed to foster it or improve it?
Show confidence, maybe,
So confidence, yeah,
and conviction.
conviction,
And I will be more demonstrating.
more demonstrating. Okay.
So, and the will, how to act on that
Mm-hmm.
is more complex for me. I have to take to think about it more.
Okay.
I have nothing on the right now
Okay.
ready.
Sure. 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 No problem. No problem. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. So if you want to share your part.
A few things.
Yeah. Sure.
5 minutes.
No.
Sorry, I was not too
We
long.
can,
No, 7
we
minutes.
can synthesize together because a lot of what was already said anyway. so-
Okay.
No, but on the goal, I would say for me is what is important is the freedom to participate, to collaborate.
Mm-hmm.
So people have to be free
Mm-hmm.
in terms of I'm ready to, I'm not ready.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding that the timing is very individual.
Mm.
So don't have to, but it's possible if you want.
Mm-hmm.
So empower teammates is very important,
Ah.
and the enabling thing is always letting the optimized solution to emerge.
Oh wow. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
which is always letting the optimized solution to emerge.
Yeah.
So create the condition for the solution to emerge,
Yeah.
which is not very easy always.
Yeah.
Um,
And you believe that if the team members feel safe, this kind of outcome is possible, right?
all three items are most likely to happen if psychological safety is there.
Mm.
But at the same time, it's not very easy to explain to people what psychological safety is
Yes.
and is not.
Mm.
Because for people, it's very individual how you see yourself as safe or not safe.
Yeah.
So, and in every system, you have a big history behind, and a lot of things are not clear. It's like gifts coming from the past.
Yeah.
See?
Psychological debt.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at some point they're carrying that with them, and they, yeah, it's also some time bombs that you don't know.
Minds that
Yeah,
you
minefields. No, what we like to do, the message we like to give to people, and just to complement
Mm.
in what we do,
Mm.
we try to let the people understand what it means to be distinct from the others, different, in order not to be distant. So not to
Oh,
create a
yeah,
distance
yeah.
from the
Mm.
others.
Yeah.
So that's something we like to do.
Mm.
So this is also the awareness of your identity,
Yeah.
need,
Yeah.
and the freedom to speak out
Yeah.
what is important and not for
Yeah.
you. So management with distance is no management.
Mm-hmm.
That's if you are in a psychological safety environment,
Mm.
you can be also as close as you want to people. That's no problem.
Mm.
If it's not safe, then of course people create and play with distance,
Mm.
and this is of course a no-go.
Mm.
In the options, I put some more things here. What I like in the options in an environment is I would like, in a group, in a team, I would like to have indicators,
Mm.
but concrete indicators. So, example, I use from time to time I use a plastic tube or a glass tube like that,
Mm-hmm.
and people have balls, and they decide at which levels
Mm-hmm.
they're going to launch, for example, a meeting, because we don't want to create meetings for meetings. So they have their goals, or they have the freedom to use their signals. And when they put things inside, and you reach a level, then they create. It's time for the meeting.
Okay.
But as long as there is not enough, then things are going.
Okay. Yeah, that's nice.
So it's more organic
Mm.
and not fixed.
Mm.
That's it. And what I want also in options is sharing. I want to be a role model in the fact that I'm sharing my vulnerabilities with other people,
Yeah. Yeah.
so that they understand that in that area, it's where I have the most potential creative potential. In fact, it's where you are vulnerable, but that you are most creative.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not where you are supposed to be already competent.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Thank you. Anything that you want to add or? Okay. Sure. Okay. Sure. So I think, as you rightly mentioned, one of the ways could be sharing your vulnerabilities and showing it that you are not the Mr. Know-all of everything. It's fine every time to say that I'm not aware of this thing, or I want to know more about it. It will also help, as you said, you can start with your own, and it will also spread to others that they feel safe to say that, okay, I also don't know this, but I want to learn this. And can you help me?
I would say it's more than fine, it's a must.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I think that was the purpose of the session. I have few more slides that I want to show you guys. So yeah. Yeah. Since we are done with the workshop, some of the things that actually Amy Edmondson in her book prescribed that would help foster psychological safety could be frame the work as a learning problem. So it's not an execution problem, but you frame it as a learning problem. If you see the fundamentals of Agile, how it works is, Agile is something like, okay, in its basic form, it's like, so if I'm here, I set a goal to go there, I step back, see what are the things that I did well, and what are the things that didn't go well, and improve upon it to take up the next step. So experiment. So every problem is a learning problem rather than an execution problem. Try to learn from your failures. So don't be scared to fail, but try to learn from it. It's not okay to fail every time, but it's not, and innovation cannot happen if you don't fail. So create this environment where you take the problem as a learning problem, learn from it, and improve continuously. Second thing is acknowledge your own fallibility. As he rightly mentioned, create an environment where you start with, okay, I don't know this. Can you help me on this one? I want to learn more about it. And maybe the team member would also be comfortable to say that, okay, I also don't know this. Can you help me on this one? And over a period of time, it creates an environment where people are open to share their weaknesses, strengths, challenges, and talk about it and work on it. And the third one is model curiosity and ask a lot of questions. Actually, we are dealing with a complex problem. As I said, even if we were in an earlier days where people worked with the assembly lines, there was some set of things that they can do to achieve a result. But as the Kenevan model also talk about, we are in a complex environment. There is no direct relationship between cause and effect. It's a complex world. So have curiosity, have a lot of questions, because nobody knows the answer. The best you can do is ask questions and try to innovate, solve, learn, and move forward based on the learning. So these are some of the recommendations that's been given by Amy. I hope that has been helpful, and some of the things were also there when we did the actual workshop. So there are a few references based on which I created my today's talk or the workshop. I think the book, The Fearless Organization, Creating Psychological Safety in the Workplace for Learning, Innovation, and Growth by Amy Edmondson. It's a fabulous book if you want to get some additional understanding or go deeper into psychological safety. This is a book by the same person who coined the term psychological safety, a Harvard business professor. Second one is one of the really good resource in case of psychological safety is the guide by Google on understanding team effectiveness. If you go to the rework and search for the understanding team effectiveness guide, you can easily find them. Third one is, as I said, I have also talked about the Navy SEAL team and the US Army and the Secret Service and how the Navy SEAL works and what could be the attributes of some of the Navy SEAL teams. You can also read a really good book on extreme ownership, how US Navy SEALs lead and win. And that book talks really well about why failure is not an option for them, and then how they adapt to it, and then how they achieve that mission every time, and what are the attributes of the team for them. And finally, if you don't have the time to read a comprehensive book, you can also watch a TEDx video on building a psychological safe workplace by Amy. It's a very nice shortened video, but gives you a lot of insight in terms of psychological safety. So finally, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I'll be around in the conference, so if you want to, we can have a discussion during the conference, or if you want to reach out later on as well, these are my email address and LinkedIn details, so please feel free to reach out. And just, I'd like to promote something, that is, there is a Visit Nepal 2020 year for 2020. So government is requesting all the global citizens to visit Nepal. So I'd just like to take that initiative from the Nepal government and request you guys even to, if you are planning to looking for a good travel destination, Nepal is one of the best places. And just drop me a message. I'll be more than happy to help you guys and meet you guys there. So, yeah. Finally, a big thank you to the sponsors who facilitated or ensured that this talk could happen, and a big thank you to the organizing committee. And finally, if you want to share the feedback or provide the feedback on this session, you can do this via this slide or from this website. And then if you like the session, please hashtag it and tweet it. And thank you so much for your time and effort, and then showing up for the workshop. Without you guys, it would not have been possible. Thank you. Thank you once again.